and welcome to another Impact edition of 1 Hour, your go-to program for bold conversation sharing African future. In this special episode of our podcast series named Unlocking African Trade Potential, we are turning our focus on the most dominant for me, because I like the province. I know if you didn't know, now you must know, KwaZulu-Natal, one of the 9 provinces of South Africa. Joining us online today, Mr. Sihle Ngcamu, who is the Executive Manager for Investment Promotion at the Trade Investment KwaZulu-Natal, commonly called TIKZN. Mr. Sihle is at the forefront of regional trade development, investment, facilitation, and economic diplomacy. Today, he will be sharing valuable insight into how the province did position himself as a gateway for intra-African trade and cross-border investment, in alignment, of course, with the Free Trade Agreement. From Africa biggest, we know that we have different ports, but Natal port is one of the biggest in Africa in terms of a trade corridor and investment opportunity. So we will explore how business, policymaker, and innovator can unlock real scalable potential across the continent. So if you're sitting in North, West, Central, Southern of Africa or East Africa, stay tuned. This is your show, Impulse, for Impulse Radio Africa Television, and we welcome, as announced, Mr. Sihle, and I will start and say good evening and thank you to be part of our program. Good evening, sir.
Well, it's an evening on your side, Tangai. We've just crossed past 1 o'clock in my region here, and good to meet you and your listeners and your viewers. Definitely a great pleasure for me. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. So let's start with the beginning, and can you explain to us what is your organization and what is it about?
No, thanks for that. I'm the CEO for Trade Investment KwaZulu-Natal. It's a public entity. We are under the Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs in the province, and we are the agency of KwaZulu-Natal. Mainly tasked and mandated to grow the economy of KwaZulu-Natal, but by attracting both domestic and foreign direct investments, and ensuring that we grow the export capacity of our province by for our businesses in the province. Also ensuring that the businesses that we have in our province, were able to retain them, and also provide support mechanisms that will ensure that those businesses expand their production capacity. Our main task is to grow the economy of the province, create jobs by our economy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this insightful information about your organization, but I also know that you ran it since 2016. So I would like to know, can you share with us one of your strategy in terms of attracting both foreign and domestic investment in the province, and maybe also share with us some highlights, some successful stories so far?
I mean, as you know, like all other economies, we have instance has not been growing flows, whether at a global or at a regional level. There has been a decline of the investments, and predominantly COVID-19 is both we are developing economies and developed economies had to come up with them and sharpen their strategies of attracting investments into their including ourselves as a country and also ourselves as a province. We've had to look at our value proposition and sharpen our value proposition, firstly, to ensure that we attract FDIs, but also we're able to grow our domestic investments in our province. So in doing that, we had to look at our economic strengths and look at where we are best stronger in terms of making sure that we're able to compete at a global stage. And we looked at the significance of KwaZulu-Natal as a contributor into the South African GDP. We looked at diversifying our economy and looking at our strong economies, like our sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, logistics, as well as tourism. But also, I think we sharpened our logistics and using our strategic location as a port-driven or a port-driven kind of a province, with two significant trade ports, the one in Durban, which is the largest port in the Southern Hemisphere, and the Richards Bay port. With those two ports being positioned then to able to enable KwaZulu-Natal to become really a gateway to Africa. But also, I think we also looked at how can we sharpen our infrastructure development and create platforms that will then attract investments. Hence, then our province pride itself by having two special economic zones, one in Richards Bay that focuses on large and bulk manufacturing kind of industries. And then you have a Dubai Trade Port, which is linked to the international airport, King Shah International Airport, focusing on really light manufacturing, logistics, and also creative industries. And then we looked at our rail infrastructure, road infrastructure, and looked at what are other opportunities in terms of alternative energies that we need to bring on board so that then we kind of like diversify our economy. So it's really been built around how do we use our strengths to sharpen our value proposition. And since then, we have had a number of investments that have come through our province. And last year in 2024, we hosted a very successful investment conference wherein we garnered about 84 billion rands worth of investments and pledges across all sectors of our economy, including property development, tourism sector, including manufacturing and logistics. And those investments showed a lot of confidence for private sector in investing in our province. And successfully, most of them are already have started construction, and some of them are now leading up to operational phase. And it's all through the support of our government that is fully behind ensuring that an enabled environment is provided for investors to invest, and the support system in terms of policy, and in some instances, some incentives that will ensure that these industries thrive in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So the likes of Club Med, which is a major coastal resort development, is currently under construction in our province, and a number of other major economic development nodes that we have seen coming up in the area of Durban, and also in the area of Richards Bay area, and many other nodes that we have earmarked for such developments, including our special economic zones, as I have indicated.
Thank you for the beautiful answer, but I would like to move a bit forward and also find out, what is your organization? What do they do to play not only in attracting new investment, but also in supporting of the what you call the expansion of the existing business? Because I know that you work also on bringing people, but I also want to know, what is your role in terms of the business who are here already in KwaZulu-Natal?
Yeah, so that's very important, Tangai, to ensure that you don't only attract investments, but you ensure that the ones that you have attracted and the ones that are within your fabric and network and ecosystem are grown further and are expanded. So we deploy a number of programs to ensure that they are sustained. Firstly, is to make sure that the policy environment in the province allows them to grow, allows them to expand by ensuring that we open up new markets for them, and also ensuring that any early warning systems of de-investments we are alerted to, and we seek some support and interventions, but also we apply programs to these investments of ensuring that the labor supply, but also stability and security in disruptions on the with civil society, with chambers of commerce, and all of those to make sure that the existing business is addressed early enough before the business is business retention program to provide us with some early warning systems of this could be facing. We understand that these ambassadors, when we're gonna, of course, if they good news, if they can't tell good story about newcomers, then newcomers. But if we are once support wherein perhaps they've got supply, they've got issues of some expertise of some of the equipment, perhaps at the port, and all of those support towards ensuring that the business they focus on doing production systems are actually functioning.
Okay, we had some technical, I think the internet is cutting, we didn't get the essential parts, but I think I will come back on that. Let's move on. I wanted to find out, according to your institution or your personal opinion, what are some of the unique advantages that South Africa and specifically your province offer to investors looking at the broader African market?
Well, as I've indicated, the first one is that we have got about 900 kilometers of the coastline as the province of that positions us very well for ocean economy initiatives. We also have got two located to great outputs to Africa, but also connecting us with Southern Africa. And also we have got very beautiful group or population that is really at a level where in they could activity, but also could take new opportunities in terms of the new development. So our population is young and well renowned entrenched universities or institutes of higher learning that are supporting these institutions. The fabric of network of existing multinationals, corporates, our province also supports the value chains of emerging companies that could come out of that. The associated brands of actually becoming more and more our competitive advantage and unique selling as a province. And I think ourselves through the ports and also through the international airport in Kingston, not only for tourism but also for the trade.
Okay, yes, thank you. So can I find out with you, knowing that the crucial element of for trade growth in Africa is the strength of transport corridor. I know you got experience, and I would like to find out what are some of the key challenges you see to achieve these beautiful ambition in terms of creating those corridors across the continent.
Yeah, I think trading in Africa, as you know, has been dwindling, and I think more and more we that's a great market of over kind of like share market, and we need to capitalize on that and leverage on that. And the trade between the bloc as in Africa, as we know, it has been steadily growing over the past 5 years, and we need to then try and enhance that and grow that even further. However, there are challenges, and those challenges really would come from some, for instance, like infrastructure deficit, wherein you'd have within the region aging and underdeveloped infrastructure. If you look at your north-south corridor linking Durban to DRC, for instance, through to Zimbabwe, if you were to travel through that, poorly maintained roads, there's limited rail connectivity, especially between Zambia and DRC. But also the other challenge is really the border delays and inefficient countries, wherein you'll find that systems for trade are not really harmonized, and then they caused long delays in terms of freight movement. And at times, you would find that these inefficiencies will then cause a lot of truck congestions, long wait at the border post. We do the regulations with in terms of ensuring that there's a smooth operations. As regulations, whether it's in terms of truck and truck size and movement on the roads, you'll find that there are different regulations governing and inconsistent policies governing the freight movement. Arguable, there's an argument around the issues of high transport cost and logistics within the region. And basically that is, I think, loaded by the issue that we rely heavily on road transport other than perhaps leveraging the capacity of our rail infrastructure that could perhaps alleviate that. In some instances, other challenges relate to issues of security and thefts, wherein perhaps there could be some vandalisms, especially on the truck stop areas and on the border areas, hijackings and so on. So there's got to be some reliability and some security intensity that is being enhanced that ensures that issues of security, theft and risk are actually mitigated. I think also we need to look at issues of multimodal integration, wherein you've got a lot of corridors or logistics hubs that are created in between the different countries, so that then when you travel from South Africa to Tanzania or Zambia, you've got multiple modal stops wherein you can upload the goods and then avoid the long transmission and transit times on the roads. If you have got those multimodal nodes being integrated, then we are sure that at least the movement of freight is much more fast-tracked, and also ensure that there's a speed turnaround in terms of that. I think those are key highlights of challenges really in terms of trading between and within Africa.
So how do you see organizations like yours collaborate with other African entities and government to foster the development of more robust and interconnected transportation infrastructure?
Well, I think that through the AfCFTA, the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, I think there's a great collaboration that is happening between African countries, and I think we need to strengthen that. But I think we also, as African countries or region, we need to then start to have an Africa narrative, an Africa message. We all have got our own strengths, and we all as African bloc have got our own weaknesses. But as we go out to the world, we need to have one message that says Africa is open for business, and here are our strengths as Africa, not only in terms of market, but also in terms of resources. I think if we then develop one narrative and one message that encompasses our strengths in terms of young population as Africa, our strengths in terms of the size of the market, our strengths in terms of resources that we have. And also, I think we do have strengths in terms of issues of innovation and issues of skills that in some of the regions are really in abundance, and we could then actually leverage on those areas. So I think as an organization, as trade investment, KwaZulu-Natal, but by and large, by extension, as the province and the country, collaborations with the like-minded, but also collaboration in terms of messaging, collaboration in terms of marketing Africa as a region, and then elevating our collective strengths, I think can position us as a great bloc in the world map.
So what do you think we need to start with in terms of infrastructure so that we can unlock the full potential of Africa transport corridor and facilitating smooth trade flows?
Yeah, I did mention, I think first and foremost is the whole thing of ports. I think that the growing regions have really prioritized development of ports. I think, as you know, there's a lot of development of ports around Africa, especially in Maputo and other regions of SADC. Namibia, the port is being developed, but also in South Africa, both our ports are currently under immense development. And I think there's been a lot of injection of infrastructure fund that is going to be going towards the development of our ports. So I think as a start, Africa needs to look at its ports, because the ports are then used as a gateway to actually take goods out. But secondly, to promote connectivity and also promote tourism and movement of people and goods, the airports are becoming critical, more and more critical, because once you have developed and elevate your airports to international standards, then we are able to attract masses of your tourists, but also are able to use the air freight through that and connect easily and quicker the countries and connect people and connect goods or movement of goods through the airports. But the airports also tends to grow cities around them. So I think then airports really becomes a second major development that has got to come with in terms of growing Africa infrastructurally. Rail is also another one. And then the last one, which is also critical, and I think it cuts across, is really digital connectivity. Because more and more you would need that digital infrastructure to connect people, digital infrastructure to ensure that there is ease flow of information, but also it will then start enhancing innovation and creativity in terms of the new sectors and smart cities and smart trade that you would develop through your broadband infrastructure that can be developed.
So speaking about the free trade agreement and what people expect, we know we have a lot of expectation coming with this free trade agreement. What will be your opinion on that? And I would like to know if you believe that it will also be a boost in terms of developing those different infrastructure. But I will also want to tap on the facilitation of movement of people. Do you believe that the movement of people also is a crucial question to abord in terms of creating these corridors and also this economy that we're all looking for?
Yeah, let's talk about firstly the movement of people. I think for South Africa and KZN, especially for KZN, I think the major contributor to our tourists is Africa, and I think it's Botswana, and I think I'm not sure whether it's Ghana and Kenya in that particular order. So you can see that already Africa is really becoming a major player in terms of the movement of people if we are getting high numbers of tourists coming from Africa to KwaZulu-Natal. So hence then the whole issue around making sure that your airport infrastructure is elevated to an international standard becomes critical. Now, in terms of the after and how do I see it in terms of maximizing the impact of it? Definitely, I think it is adding value. It is easing and providing some kind of neutral ground or playing field from different regions of Africa with regards to trade. Obviously, there are still challenges that still needs to be ironed out, including issues of the harmonization of cross-border regulations, as they kind of like tend to create some bottlenecks. So I think if we could harmonize the regulations in terms of the cross-border movements of the freight, that could help a lot in terms of ensuring that we leverage on AfCFTA. But I think there's still a lot of uncertainty around the policies and framework around it. I think there's still got to be a lot of awareness, and there's still a lot of education around it, so that the businesses can actually maximize the use of it and ensure that they're able to use it. I think we can then also look at private-public partnerships and strengthen that, because then you will find that most of these collaborations that we need in Africa could actually, some of them may not necessarily be driven through private sector alone, or even government alone, but through your public-private partnership programs. You'll find that we'll be able to bridge certain gaps that are there within the AfCFTA. I think I did speak about issues of digital infrastructure or trade infrastructure, ensuring that our customs procedure are interconnected, the data sharing platforms are connected, and all of those things can actually elevate the AfCFTA program into a much more beneficial program to business and to Africa. But personally, I do believe that it is a great framework, and I think that it will increase, and I think we've already started to see an increase in terms of the trade between African countries. It's just that we do need to kind of like unlock some of these bottlenecks that are there, and ensure that there is greater provision of infrastructure, digitization, and ensure that there's harmonization on some legislation and frameworks.
I would like to find out from you, you spoke about infrastructure and all the other aspects. What about education? Do you think it's time also for the African Union or the free trade to invest in education infrastructure like universities, so that we can make sure that the scholars of Africa are aligned?
The skills shortages, and I think it's more on, it may not necessarily be the issue of availability of education infrastructure or education amenities. The institutions of higher learning are the issue of relevance and the today's skills. The biggest problem is the gap demands is the supply. There's got to be some the jobs that are needed to what we are supplying as an output from tertiary institutions. So education itself has got to be aligned to the new market of jobs that is being required. So we are seeing more and more, if you look at the new sectors of renewable energy, you need a new set of skills there, digitization, robotics, you need a new set of skills there, and you need to then start restructuring and aligning the issues of higher learning right at an early stage. It's no use to start at the university level to align, but I think right from the lower grades, you need to start producing those learners and students that are geared towards the market that is being predicted. So I think that's what we need to do in the front of education, so that our education becomes relevant and becomes really a supply, or a reliable supply and a relevant supply of the demand that is required by the market.
Speaking about demand, let's speak also about the diversity of Africa in general. Do you think that it will be also appropriate for Africa to have some type of specialization per region to make sure that we can market ourselves and attract appropriate investment?
You mean specializing in terms of
sectors?
Sectors.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, well, it's good to specialize in sectors. However, it's got its own disadvantages because if that sector collapses or the market gets saturated, then you are out of the game. It's always good to diversify, but diversify within your strength. Like for instance, as I've indicated, I think in our province, we have looked at the sectors that we thought, well, we do have our traditional sectors of manufacturing, agriculture, and so on. But we are saying now renewable is one of the key sectors. Ocean economy is one of the sectors that we are really diversifying to. Pharmaceuticals, because we want to have a pool of basket so that then we are not found in a case wherein there are some tariffs or policy regimes from our biggest export markets, then we find ourselves in trouble. But also, I think the issue of specialization should also come with the issue of domestication, wherein we are able to grow our own domestic industries. I mean, if you look at African countries, by and large, most of us are still relying on OEMs, especially for car manufacturing, OEMs coming from abroad, whether it's US, Japan, China, and so on. And we need to grow our own car manufacturing, our own automotive sector strong. Then we can be self also producing our own car imports or not relying on overseas brands that are then reached here. I think with the innovation and technology, we can specialize. We also need to be careful that we don't over specialize. We could be set out of the market. But look at the strengths and opportunities going forward.
Okay, before the last question, I would like to know how can African government and investment promotion agency effectively communicate the investment opportunity available right now on the continent to a global scale, according to you?
We need to have a very sharp message. We need to have a very strong as Africa. Our message is really center around our capabilities and our strengths in terms of market, in terms of resources, in terms of young population, skills that are available. I think we have good legislative framework, both on policy and financial streams or financial policy streams. So things about Africa, but also we need to start a story about Africa, how diverse in terms of tourism offerings Africa is, and also the story around of safety. I think while some of the areas of Africa could be regarded as unsafe, but also we stay in Africa. We know how safe Africa is. We know areas that are even worse than Africa that we won't be able to go to. But I think we're being painted at times very wrongly as a no-go area, whereas perhaps that's not the case. I think we need to craft a very cohesive and coherent message about Africa and what Africa can offer.
Thank you. So in terms of message, what will be your message addressed to the investor in Africa about coming to your province?
Well, I think our province, as I've indicated, it's got an abundance of opportunities, and I think we've gone past the stage of just marketing a province as a destination, as for investors. We have taken it to a stage wherein we have looked and dissected the sectors themselves of our strengths. And those sectors really are around agriculture and agro-processing, around manufacturing, renewable energy, and tourism. Then we take it a step further to say what projects we want investors to come in and invest on. So we have then packaged a number of projects around these sectors, identifying the area, doing a feasibility study, so that then when we go out to market and ask people to come and invest in our province, we are able then to sell products which are packaged projects that have been assessed and some feasibility have been done. But also we are saying that it's a safe place to be in terms of your investments, but also in terms of the infrastructure that is going to be installed. As you know, that South Africa will be hosting G20, and we want to indicate that whilst we have high unemployment rate in our country and by extension to our province, we do believe that there is great opportunities for international investors, but also from the region to really invest in KwaZulu-Natal. And KwaZulu-Natal is open for business, and there's an abundance of opportunities to invest in. And we believe that our collaboration with the private sector through a number of forums kind of like provides that conducive.
Thank you, sir, for your time, and hope that we come to the province and enjoy the beauty of your city. So see you next time.
Thank you, sir.
And that brings us to the end of another Insight episode of 1 hour. We had the pleasure to have online Mr. Sihle, Exclusive Manager of Investment Promotion at Trade Investment KwaZulu-Natal, for sharing such a powerful insight and practical knowledge on unlocking African trade and investment potential.